Hello and welcome to my 4310 app overview. I built an app for my own campus ministry that I'm about to show you. This was a cool project to be able to work on. A lot of it was more like customizability, array focused rather than a lot of interactivity, which I focused on more for my midterm project. This looks a lot different than that, but I was really excited to be able to really learn how to use arrays well, how to store data, and then call those back with different states and using bools. I was not confident in that before this project. I feel like I got a good grasp on that. So let's go ahead and start with the app. As you can see, I'm running the simulator right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. And come into the app. So when the app launches, this is the title page. So we have our custom logo, Crew@UGA, and this is the logo I designed and put in here. So essentially what I wanted to make was an announcement app. So we have, for my campus ministry, a weekly email that goes out every single Monday, and it essentially has all of these graphics and information about each one in the weekly email. But I thought that it would be pretty cool if we could have an app that we could just update every single week. In a card view like this that has the tag. So this one is a weekly meeting series. This one's a prayer one. These are resources like a Crew podcast or any kind of discipleship materials. And what you'll see is that when you click into it, it's a nice little sprung animation, which is fun. And then you can scroll and see all of the information about what is happening with that specific event or title, etc. So this is just telling them that there is a new sermon series coming up in January, and that there is a plan that they can be reading if they want to read it before. You just have a little down arrow that releases everything in a nice little spring animation. We have a nice shadow on the back of these card views. Learning how to create a good card view was really, really helpful. I feel like a lot of apps that I'm building currently follow a more simplistic view like this that are used for information, and so I thought this was a really good example of being able to work on those skills. You can come into this one, and you can see that some missions fair is happening. So it's essentially just an announcement app that can be updated by Crew, and because it's very simple, passing this off to someone to input is not very hard. So let's go ahead and look at some of the actual code. Here's my file structure over here. It's pretty basic: content view, a card view that controls what these look like, both in the card view and how they are when they are large and have all the content details displayed. We'll go ahead and resume that just so we can see. So, and then what we start with is our article data sheet. So with this, we just have the import Swift2i, a couple of variables that we want to be able to call in the actual app. So for each of these, it's really easy. This is kind of the tagline, like structure that we follow for the emails anyways. And so I just copy pasted from stuff that we had already written. So for someone to update this every week would actually be pretty easy because we write a lot of our content in this format. So I have all of that here. All of the images were moved into the assets folder just to be readily accessible and renamed to be quick. And then they were called here. So with all of this in here, it was really easy to go into the card view then. And as you can see on this side, we have a couple of different screens. So this first one is when we want to show the subheadline. The second one is if for some reason there is no subheadline or we don't want to show it. And this is what each individual card looks like before the content is pulled up, and this is what each card looks like when the content is fully expanded. And so to make that happen, we allow these variables to come into play since they are in the article data sheet, but they need to be called to actually display here. And so this way we are able to just assign the string that's in the array to these variables. And then we have a binding variable. This is something I definitely learned a lot about in this project, was the binding variables. I was not super familiar with them before this. Honestly, I didn't really understand them, but I feel like I got a good grasp of it. So we have is show content true or false, but that's what bool means. And that just tells us whether our view is this card view or whether that content is being displayed full page, and allows us to trigger in between the two. So for our regular one, we just have the frame set up, so the category uppercase, the headline, and then if self is show content, sub headline. So if it has that, so if the exclamation points, if it's not showing, so if it's not showing all of this content, it's going to show the sub headline instead. And so this is what gets pushed up to the top in this view. And then just a couple of things that format it, padding, spacers, foreground colors, all that kind of thing. And then I actually learned how to use Geometry Reader as well. I was not really sure what that did. Geometry made it sound confusing. But what we did for geometry was just to be able to actually really align it to the specifications of each phone. This will make it more responsive when the user's phone changes. So if they're on an iPhone 12 or they're on an iPhone 11 or an iPhone mini, it'll look the same and have the same proportions. And then we just use that to make the frame there, using that is show content variable to let them know whether it needs to be full screen and come all the way up to the top, because that was not the default thing, or if it needs to just stay in the card view. And then we have the overlay of the article excerpt view. As you can see, I have two structures. One is the article card view, which is what they look like as cards, and then the article up here, sorry, article excerpt view, which I just walked you through. And that is what the bottom portion looks like. So when you come over that, and then you have the overlay, that way the image and the content text is on the same thing and is showing up together. And then we just have this little tag here for content. So we write the rule if self is show content, then this is what needs to happen to bring up the actual content page that we established in this view as well. And that is all of that information right here. So that like chevron down circle fill is that little button up there. And so basically we just created all of our, I kind of see this as a CSS style sheet. If you had to assign that to SwiftUI, this is kind of our style sheet for what everything's going to look like. And then we come over into content view where everything actually happens. In this, I added the logo as an image right up here with resizable rules. And then we have a private var and then an enum just to show whether we are in content mode or not, so that we can trigger between those two for the animations and for resizing. Again, we put in Geometry Reader. This one was really good to learn how to do, was the geometry like inner, so that it fills the page perfectly without overlapping, without me having to manually resize all the time. We have the self-content mode list or content that controls whether the other articles are showing or not. So this makes sure that the other articles that are behind this essentially are not visible, and then they become visible again. This is all, of course, within a scroll view. I took the scroll indicators off. I like the way it looks if it's just plain. And we have our frame down here, again, with just some of the variables from Geometry Reader. If you can see, we have that full view that just allows it to contain the whole page. And that honestly took a lot of my coding for the content view. So that is my app. I hope that this tutorial and walkthrough was helpful and that you can see what I did for this project. While it doesn't seem to have a lot happening on the front end, there really is a lot happening on the back end, just with learning how to call things in an efficient manner that is repeatable and usable again without having to hard code a lot of information. Since this is an information app, being able to pull it directly from content was really useful, and I think will help me in the future. So thank you.